ここで何があった？何もなかった。
Above the waves of the vast ocean, in a world filled with mystery and legend, stands a man with a sharp gaze that penetrates deep into a soul flooded with dreams. His name is Roronoa Zoro, a swordsman who dances with his weapon between dreams and freedom. A person with strong determination, someone who never gives up. From him, we will learn the meaning of loyalty. This video discusses Zoro not because he got lost and ended up on this channel, but because so many have requested it. So let's discuss this character in depth and try to learn a thing or two from him. Roronoa Zoro, also known as the Pirate Hunter, is the main combatant of the Straw Hat Pirates, one of their two swordsmen, one of the senior officers of the Straw Hat Grand Fleet, and is publicly recognized as the right-hand man of his crew's captain, Monkey D. Luffy. And in his recent live-action story, he is officially recognized as the vice-captain. Zoro as a member of the Straw Hat crew embodies courage and strength. He has a very interesting name origin. His family name, Roronoa, is actually inspired by a real pirate from the past. That pirate was famous as one of the cruelest pirates in the Caribbean during his era. While the name itself is read as Roronoa in Japanese. Zoro was born in East Blue, the son of Tara and Roronoa Arashi, the grandson of Shimotsuki Furiko and Roronoa Pinzoro, and the great-grandson of Shimotsuki Ishimaru, making him a descendant of the Shimotsuki family from the land of Wano and the legendary samurai Shimotsuki Ryuma. When Zoro was a child, he was a gifted student at the kendo dojo of Kuina's father Kaoshiro. Even at a young age, Zoro had shown extraordinary ability in the art of the sword, using two swords. He was even able to defeat adult opponents. However, there was one very striking exception. Zoro, strong and persistent, could not defeat Kuina. They fought repeatedly, and Zoro always lost. They had even fought as many as 2,000 times, and that did not diminish Zoro's resolve at all. In the end, Zoro challenged Kuina to a fight with real swords, and the result remained the same. He lost again. This is the first time we see Zoro cry. This is where we see how defeat in battle can bring him emotionally low. Here, Kuina tries to offer words to make Zoro feel better. She says that in the end, women will become weak as they grow up, and eventually she will be defeated by Zoro. However, Zoro rejects such a thought and promises to always fight with Kuina, and here we are shown that they both swore to become the strongest swordsman. However, fate had other plans. The next morning, Kuina died tragically after falling down the stairs of her house. Zoro felt angry and as if Kuina had broken that promise. He cried and asked for Kuina's sword, the Wado Ichimonji, which is one of the 21 strongest swords in the world, which he later always carried in his mouth. With that sword, Zoro promised to carry on Kuina's unfulfilled ambition. This is the beginning of his long journey towards his dream of becoming the strongest swordsman and at the same time faithfully honoring Kuina's memory. This moment is one that shapes Zoro's character in the One Piece story, and the precursor to the strong determination and commitment he carries with him throughout his adventures with Luffy and the Straw Hat crew members. As a master of the three-sword style, a swordsmanship style he created during his childhood training in Shimotsuki village, Zoro is one of the three strongest fighters in the Straw Hats, alongside Luffy and Sanji, who are called the Monster Trio. Besides being a part of the Straw Hat crew and a former bounty hunter, his substantial bounty upon arriving at the Sabaody archipelago caused Zoro, along with Luffy, to be among the 11 supernovas, which are 11 rookie pirates with bounties over 100,000. Zero berries who had reached the red line, with his own bounty being 120 million berries. He and the other 10 supernovas were later called the worst generation. Without a doubt, Zoro is a fighter, someone who works hard and never gives up. He never gave up dueling 2001 times even though he never won even once. Whether this attitude reflects tenacity and perseverance, or is merely stubbornness, or perhaps a combination of both, Zoro has a big dream and ambition to become the best swordsman in the world, and will cut down anyone who dares to stand in his way, as Zoro himself said to Luffy at the beginning of their meeting. However, when Luffy was in a helpless state, when Luffy was about to be captured and possibly killed by the Shichibukai, Bartholomew Kumer, in this moment, Zoro was willing to give up his life, accept tremendous pain, and most importantly, he was willing to give up his dream of becoming the best swordsman. After we see how much respect and trust he has for Luffy, he gives up his dream, something that has driven him forward in life all this time, for the sake of his captain. Zoro would probably be willing to do anything to help pave the way for Luffy to achieve his goal. He would willingly fight until all his bones are broken, until his blood runs dry. He could relinquish his dream, and even his own life, as long as it helps Luffy achieve his goal. To make someone with as high an ego and pride as Zoro bow his head, it takes something very big, a reason strong enough to discard the pride he possesses. Something that even surpasses his own life and dream, Zoro himself says. This is where we begin to see Zoro's character more deeply. The loyalty he possesses is higher than everything else. In his eyes, loyalty is higher than his own dream. And if we delve deeper, his dream to become the best swordsman in the world is not solely because he wants it. He has a dream not for himself, but it is a form of loyalty towards Kuina, someone he respects. He continuously tries to achieve it for Kuina's sake, not for his own. So, it makes perfect sense that he places his captain above himself, above his own dream, because for him, loyalty is everything. One scene that illustrates all of this is right when all the Straw Hat crew members regain consciousness, when Sanji found Zoro standing upright and drenched in blood. When Sanji asked Zoro what had happened, Zoro said that nothing happened at all. In this moment, for some reason, Zoro looks really cool. An attitude like this is what usually invites or brings admiration and respect. Zoro did all that purely only to protect Luffy and his dream. He probably knows that the feeling of loss, or the pain of not being able to achieve our own dreams, is very painful. So he does not want and will not let Luffy feel that kind of pain. This trait of his, as explained before, affirms that Zoro is truly sincere in helping Luffy. He did not tell anyone what happened to him. He did not expect praise, let alone pity. He is completely sincere. Sanji himself says that Zoro did not make that sacrifice to gain praise. Once again, it is traits like this that bring respect. And things like this, moments where Zoro bows his head, discarding his self-respect, do not happen just once. After being separated from his crewmates, here, he even makes a desperate plea to Mihawk, who is, note Bena, his main enemy, the man who defeated him and almost killed him several years ago. Zoro bows to him, setting aside his pride because he must become stronger for Luffy. Again, this could only happen because of Luffy. Although Zoro reasons that he asks to be trained so he can defeat Mihawk, however, both we and Mihawk know that when someone like Zoro is willing to lower himself, it must concern someone else. Mihawk here also opines that Zoro has found something that surpasses his own ambition. And there is another moment that surely cannot be forgotten by all One Piece fans, which is when Zoro refused to let Luffy bring Usopp back into the Straw Hat crew. After a series of unfortunate events, the Straw Hats had to say goodbye to their first ship, Go and Mary. Usopp was upset with Luffy because he felt he had abandoned the ship he loved so much. In his anger, Usopp challenged Luffy to a duel and lost. Usopp then said that he was leaving the group that had given color to his life. When the entire crew wanted to pick up Usopp and give him a chance to return without an apology, Zoro stood as a voice of firm authority. With his characteristic firmness, he decided to take a strong stance and speak in a resounding tone. Zoro, always known for his strict principles and discipline, viewed their captain, Luffy, as a leader who must be respected. In that moment, bluntly and firmly, he instructed Luffy to stand tall. His reason was clear. A crew must have clear authority and hierarchy, even in difficult matters. Then, with a very firm attitude, Zoro addressed his crewmates who wanted to give Usopp a second chance. With sharp and resounding words, he conveyed his message that Luffy is their captain, and as captain, he must be respected. There is no place for disrespect within the crew, and Zoro does not want to be part of a crew where the captain allows blatant disrespect from its members. There is a moment where Zoro would even save an enemy if ordered by Luffy, like when he saved the drowning smoker. Here, Zoro basically did not want to save an enemy, but when the order came from his captain, Luffy, he strictly obeyed. However, besides obedience, there is something quite interesting here. Could it be that Zoro actually still has some worry or care for Smoker that even he himself is unaware of? Because basically, Zoro is indeed a good person. Zoro, with his often stern and aloof demeanor, has an undeniable depth of goodness. There are moments that illustrate that behind his rough appearance, his heart is full of sincere kindness. He is always willing to protect innocent people, like when he saved Rika from the naughty and foolish Helmeppo. even when he had to face the consequences of his actions, like being captured because he didn't want innocent people executed just because of him. The moment where Zoro was willing to eat down a jiri that had been stepped on by Helmeppo is a perfect illustration of his sincere nature. Even though the onigiri was not tasty, Zoro still accepted it kindly because he did not want to hurt Rika's feelings. Zoro cannot refuse kindness offered by others. This is proof that within Zoro, there is a good heart that cares for others, even if he often appears harsh. There is another important principle strongly held by Zoro that makes him very loyal, which is promise. Zoro has a strong principle to always fulfill the promises he makes, especially to his friends and the Straw Hat crew. This is one of the fundamental aspects of his character. Zoro believes that keeping a promise is a sign of honor and courage. Zoro understands that a promise is something that must be honored. For him, keeping a promise is a sign of honor and courage. When he gives his word, it is a commitment that must be kept without hesitation. That is how he sees the meaning of a promise. He has made various promises during their adventures, such as promises to protect his friends, achieve their shared dream, and achieve his goal of becoming the strongest swordsman. This principle reflects Zoro's commitment and loyalty to the important people in his life. In other words, if there is one key principle that can be used to describe the values Zoro upholds, it is promise or commitment. His ability to fulfill the promises he makes, even in the most difficult situations, reflects his mental toughness. Zoro is the type of person who will not waver under pressure or difficulty. Resilience is a strong characteristic of Zoro. He often suffers serious injuries in battles, but he always endures and rises again with greater spirit. Zoro has a very clear goal in his life, which is to become the strongest swordsman. This goal gives him stable focus and direction.
剣士として最強を目指すと決めた時から、命なんてとうに捨ててる。
This statement shows how serious he is in pursuing his dream. No joking, no turning back. When words leave his mouth, he will strive with all his might to make it all happen. He is a living example for his friends, especially for Brook, Chopper, and Usopp, who all highly respect him. There is one more thing we need to know about Zoro. Zoro is someone who possesses high honor, where even during his first fight against Dracula Mihawk, when he suffered a crushing defeat, Zoro did not allow his back to be wounded. According to him, a wound on the back is a disgrace for a swordsman. In this event, even Mihawk acknowledged how incredible the attitude shown by Zoro was. In episode 65, at the beginning of their meeting, when Zoro was fighting Vivi, at that time, Vivi called Zoro Mr. Bushido, although Zoro already had several epithets. This Mr. Bushido contains enough symbolic meaning and significance to describe the character of Roronoa Zoro. Bushido itself is a term that refers to the way of the warrior in Japanese culture, which is a set of codes and moral values that govern the behavior and ethics of a samurai. This code encompasses principles such as courage, honesty, loyalty, respect, and discipline that samurai followed. Although Zoro is not a samurai, there is a strong reason why Nefertari Vivi calls him Mr. Bushido. This is actually a sign of respect referring to Zoro's resemblance to the principles of Bushido, both in his attitude as a warrior and in his skillful use of the katana. Zoro's strong attitude and yielding determination in battle, his loyalty to the Straw Hat crew, and his strict code of ethics in practicing swordsmanship are traits that make him similar to a samurai. Though Zoro is not a samurai in the context of Japanese history, he symbolically reflects the values of Bushido through his strong moral principles and courage in battle. So, the title Mr. Bushido given by Vivi is a fitting way to acknowledge the similarity of Zoro's values and attitude to the Bushido code, even if not literally as a samurai. So the question is Zoro so loyal to Luffy and the Straw Hat crew solely because he follows this Bushido principle? Zoro's loyalty is not just because he is a reflection of a samurai or someone following his principles, but because of the values shared by the Straw Hat crew and the bond they built during their journey together. Both Zoro and Luffy have a strong code of ethics. Zoro respects Luffy's determination to achieve his dream of becoming the Pirate King, and he sees him as a leader who keeps his promises and upholds his principles. This creates a strong bond between the two of them. Furthermore, Zoro and the Straw Hat crew grew together during their adventures. They overcame various obstacles and dangers together, which strengthened their bond. Zoro has witnessed Luffy's abilities and determination throughout their adventures, and this makes him increasingly trust and be loyal to Luffy. Although Zoro's initial goal was to become the strongest swordsman, he also shares the dream with the crew to find One Piece and pursue his own dream in the world of pirates. The shared desire to achieve their goals is one of the factors that maintains Zoro's loyalty to Luffy and the rest of the crew. So, although the way of Bushido may influence Zoro's character in terms of integrity and morals, his loyalty to Luffy and the Straw Hat crew is primarily based on emotional bonds, shared values, and shared experiences during their adventures. And once again, in Zoro's eyes, loyalty is everything. And also, one thing sometimes associated with Zoro is stoicism. Zoro is a figure who exemplifies the principles of Stoic philosophy through his life's journey. Zoro is a person rarely affected by negative emotions, such as anger or fear. Especially in fierce battles, he is able to maintain his composure under pressure, reflecting self-control, an important aspect of Stoic philosophy. Zoro also bases every action he takes on his own will. It is only because he wants to. He never expects praise or validation from outside parties. When he was laughed at for his three-sword style considered weird by others, he didn't bother with it. When he always lost to Kuina, he ignored the belittling words of others. When he sacrifices himself for Luffy and his friends, he says nothing. He expects nothing. He does it all simply because he wants to. Zoro doesn't care about how others will react. He doesn't care if he is labeled evil by others or even by the world government. Zoro understands that one can only control their own reactions and actions towards an external environment that can never be controlled. Zoro is a figure who inspires many people with his courage, steadfastness, and strong principles. On his journey to achieve his dream of becoming the strongest swordsman, he has not only become a hero for the Straw Hat crew but also a symbol of how determination and commitment can change a person's fate in this unpredictable world. Zoro is different from Luffy, who is descended from a marine hero and the revolutionary, different also from Sanji, who is a royal prince, and even from Usopp, who has an incredible father. Roronoa Zoro is just an ordinary person, although he has the blood of Shimotsuki Ryuma, who was a great samurai, but the relation is quite distant. At least not as close as his three crewmates, Luffy, Sanji, and Usopp. So, it's no wonder if he struggles harder than the others. He is the only person in the Straw Hat crew shown to still frequently train while on the ship. Zoro knows that for an ordinary person like him to achieve his goal, he must try harder than others. He knows his shortcomings and dares to fix them all. He never gives up, and like most people who would immediately retreat when faced with a thick and high wall. And he does all this based on promise, based on loyalty. One thing that makes him really cool is that Zoro views loyalty as everything.